hold on tight. 'Cause you know tomorrow may not bring that same thing that you said last night. Woo! Every time I find a little peace of mind, I hold on tight. 'Cause tomorrow may not bring the very same thing. No, no, no. Said none of the right there. You that care all. Just for me, I'm so glad that you that care all. Just for me, I'm so glad that you that care all. For a sinner like me.
Well, how you doing today, Alvin Jones?
Very well, sir. Thank you for asking. And how about yourself?
I'm simply fantastic, and thank you for asking. I know
You're
that you're
welcome.
coming to us with a story, and it kind of goes on the tail end of the story you told after your accident. And this is involving another police shooting. And you're very close to this shooting, and it also shows how racism was still going on back then, but this was very personal to you. This was very close to you. And I know you wanted an opportunity to share this story.
Is this story is about my older brother, my only brother, Nathan E. Jones. 2 weeks after my incident and my accident, he was shot by a Denver policeman. Uh, June 2nd, 1968, in the Holly Shopping Center. What makes this story so interesting is that you'll find out that they circled the wagons, the press, the police department, the court system, all got together and concocted a story and railroaded a black individual and got the results that they needed to keep from being sued when they were wrong.
You said a mouthful. You said a lot. Can
Yes, I
you
did.
can you kind of bring us up into how did all this occur? What was going on? Where were you at? What kind of event was this?
Okay, back in the summer of 1968, all the black youth in the Denver area used to get together in the Holly shopping center and parking lot and the Skyland parking lot. And they used to just hang out, listen to music. I was there with my brother. That was the first night that he had taken me out, and my mother had told him to watch out for your brother. I was in pretty bad shape, probably after 2 weeks of my accident had happened 2 weeks prior. What I recall was one of the Chapman brothers came into the parking lot in a convertible car.
Okay, so everybody was there. What kind of event was there? Why was all the children or all the young people there? What was this event about? How many people were there about?
There were over 200 to 300 teenagers and adults, people. There was no particular event. What was happening is that people were looking for a place to hang out. And if you knew Denver back in the day, they used to hang out at McDonald's, and there was a place called Dairy Delight there. and it was just an open parking lot where teenagers and people could get together, and there were places for people to put their cars. A lot of the high school students and young adults had cars, so there were many cars in the lot and people walking, and it was just a place for the young adults.
It was a place for young adults. There's about 200. I mean, that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. Can you pick us up to like some of the activities that you believe led up to what happened?
Yes, we were hanging out. A lot of the new high school graduates and a lot of the people that were on their way to college and a lot of the college kids. My brother had already did a year in college, so he was back home. Some of his buddies were back home, and we were always just hanging out, socializing is basically what it's called. They were doing drinking and stuff like that, and I don't know if people were smoking back in those days. I couldn't tell you that because I
They were
wasn't,
smoking. They were smoking back in those days. They were
well,
smoking,
I wasn't, so I can
and,
only speak for myself.
and they were drinking back in
And
those days.
I know that they were drinking because my brother was drinking, and and I kind of told him, be a little careful with that.
Is there anybody that you remember hanging out with or being around, or any people that you bumped into while you all were out that night?
I happened to be with Al McFarland and Alvin Powell, uh, and Larry Ney, I believe. And then, well, I was really with my brother, but I mean, we kind of shifted positions because he was having such a good time. Uh, One of the Chapman brothers was there. I can't remember who my brother necessarily knew, but I knew there was a lot of people there that we all knew that were hanging out. When Chapman came up there, he was driving a convertible. In the convertible was a toy gun. And I saw my brother reach for the toy gun and start playing with it, and he was kind of playing like he was a highwayman, a stick up man, and asking people for hamburgers and drinks and stuff like that. And I told him, I said, man, that gun is going to get you in trouble. You need to be careful with that. So,
But didn't your
uh,
didn't he have a job back then? Another.
as a matter of fact, my brother had just been hired at the Paramount Theater for security, and he had a police uniform in a box. He also was going to summer school, so summer college school. So he also had his books with him. So he had a box with a police uniform. He had the police belt around his waist, and he had the police uniform in his box. So that was part of what he was carrying around with him. And while he was clowning and acting and having a good time, before he started work, I think his job schedule probably, since he had his uniform, he probably would have started the next day or either the next week.
So you're talking about a young man that's out having fun. Where all the kids hanging out. He did have a fake gun. He was messing around like he does, and then what happened?
The crowd kind of moves, it's alive. So I was up on one end, probably on the west end, and he was in front of Dairy Delight. I think what happened was a fight broke out. And so when the fight broke out, everybody kind of runs to go see who's fighting. From that point, I was standing outside of the car. The people that I was with were saying, well, come on, let's go. And then four shots rang out, bam, 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 bam. And I could kind of see the crowd part, and I saw what looked like what my brother had on go down, and I had this funny feeling inside. And I said, I can't go. I have to find out who got shot. And my friends were saying, let's get in the car and let's get out of here.
Through the crowd, you saw something that made you feel this was Nathan, this was your brother going down.
Yes, because I had made the comment earlier when he got that toy gun. I said that toy gun gonna get you shot, you know. And I hated it to be a prophet, but it did come true. I ran toward the shooting, and when I got there, I saw my brother laying in a puddle of blood. And I asked him then, he could talk or mumble, and I said, "Who shot you?" And he said, the police.
You're walking up on your brother. You're literally looking at your brother laying there shot. You ask him a question, and he says, the police.
And right as I focused on that point, the next thing I know, here comes about 20 to 30 squad cars lined up pointing north on Holly, and they boop, 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 pulled up, and they jump out of the car, and I go over to one of the police officers and I asked, my brother's been shot, can we get some help? He immediately ushered me to the police car and told me to get in. And I said, well, am I being arrested? I said, I need some help. Somehow I got out of the car to go back to my brother's side to try to help him. And there was a guy from Vietnam. He said that. He said, hey, I've been to Vietnam, and he was trying to administer first aid. And then the police started spraying mace. They started spraying tear gas. So now we're all crying, and I'm crying for two reasons. My brother's shot, and I got tear gas all in my face. The police is ignoring me. Everybody's kind of jumping in their car and trying to get out of there, and they're calling it a riot. And people broke some glass and did a few things and some people headed toward the 5 Points. I had to catch a ride with some people. uh, I caught a ride with Miss Dawkins uh, and her husband. They took him to jail. He was a military man, and he told the police that you're shooting our kids, and they arrested him. And Miss Dawkins took me to Denver General to go and see about my brother when the ambulance swooped up in there and picked him up and took him away.
When you say Dawkins, you're not talking about Walter.
Yes,
Okay, I know the
yes,
Dawkins.
yes.
Okay, so they were sitting there. The ambulance came.
Everything happened so fast.
Mm-hmm.
They picked him up and swooped him away. Miss Dawkins, she knew that that was my brother, so she took me to Denver General. They took her husband. She was married to Woody at the time, and they took Woody to jail.
What did they take Woody to jail for?
They took Woody to jail. Woody was I think Woody at that time probably was an E8. Yeah, he was in the military.
Yeah, E8. That's
And
not. That's up there a little bit.
and a week from there they were on their way to Italy. And so
Right.
they took him to jail for disturbing the peace. So they claimed, because he told them that the police was shooting our kids. He was asking, why are you shooting these kids, and they just grabbed him and hustled him off to jail. And I can't tell you how many people got arrested that night. Maybe 10. I don't know. But anyway, I went to Denver General and stayed the night there to see if my brother was going to make it. About 6 o'clock in the morning, he came out of surgery, and they said uh, they think he might make it. They had took out his lower intestines, and they gave him a colostomy, and his jaw had been broken.
What broke his jaw?
There was a bullet that entered right in the middle of his chin and came out of his neck. And so that broke his jaw. He received a bullet hole through the chin, come out of his neck, and a bullet hole in his lower intestines. After spending the night at Denver General, I went back home, got my parents, and we went back to Denver General about 9 o'clock. And I'm with my parents now, and my mother, she was really afraid to kind of go in there. She didn't want to see my brother in the shape that he was in, so she asked me to go in. But by this time, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the police chief had already got on the news media and on the news wire talking about a young black kid with a 357 Magnum had shot a police officer.
You know, there was a shooting up in New York going along with what you're talking about. You heard about that. And this
Yes,
narrative that you're talking about, I want to make sure that our guests really understand that what happened is something happened. But when the police got involved, the whole narrative then went to 357. He was shooting at people. 6 o'clock in the morning. This is what they're telling the public happened out there at the Holly.
correct,
Okay, I
correct.
just want to make sure I got that. 6 o'clock in
And,
the
and
morning. We done already did
no,
an investigation, and this is what happened.
well, I don't think they had done an investigation. It was just that I'm gonna call it the machine. The machine went into effect in order to protect the system. And so they went ahead and started saying things and putting stuff out there that if you listen to the news, that people could understand or would believe. It hadn't been investigated yet because the
Okay.
police that had claimed to have been shot said that they left a dead man back there. So they figured that they were never going to hear the other side of the story because they figured my brother was dead.
Well, at the Denver General Hospital, they have a lot of police trafficking through there. So, with your brother being in Denver General and the police coming out at 6 o'clock with this, how did you feel about your brother being in Denver General? Was everything okay there?
At first, we were okay, but at 9 o'clock, when I went in to see him, he told me that he was on a breathing machine and that white nurse had came in and turned the breathing machine off. And then there was a black nurse that went to our church, which was Macedonia Baptist Church,
Hey, hey.
that saw that, and she came in and turned it back on. So when my parents heard about that, the procedure, we were war orphans, so immediately they began to get him together and get him shipped to Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center. When I went in to see him at 9 o'clock that morning, he was handcuffed to the bed. They had opened him up down the middle from the middle above his stomach all the way down to his groin, and his jaw was wired, and he was mumbling and talking kind of like this with his mouth shut. We got him to Fitzsimmons that day, and then they were able to take those handcuffs off of him. He was on like 3 West, I believe, in Fitzsimmons, which was the gunshot. Uh, Fitzsimmons was a military army hospital, so they were used to gunshots, and it was the
Right.
peak of the Vietnam War at the time. So he was probably in the best place he could probably be. But Denver General did their part; they kept him alive.
You felt much more at ease. I mean, here he is. shot twice, jaw, intestines gone, and he's still handcuffed to this bed. And so when you got him to Fitzsimmons, there was no more handcuffs.
No more handcuffs.
And did they have any kind of like guard or anything like that?
Well, the military provided him with some security. You would call it a AP or MP, a military police personnel that sat by his bed wherever he was at. So he was never alone after that. They knew he wasn't going to jump up and run away. He was in bad shape. We didn't find out for a day or two until they decided to charge him with something.
Now he's being charged. This youth that was shooting a 357 at the riot. Now it's a riot with people shooting guns, and you were describing it as high school people partying up at the Hollywood like we did every summer night almost.
Correct.
Let's get back into him getting arrested, or he's been charged. What were the charges? How did they frame that?
The police chief got up 6 o'clock that morning and had already begun with his propaganda telling people that the police had been shot first. They had told their story. My brother is laying in critical condition, unable to speak or has no representative. We find out tattooed in the newspaper and all over the news is that a Black youth shoots at the police with a 357. But after 2 or 3 days, the military, Northeast Denver were full of military personnel. So all these men that were in the military knew that that didn't sound right. And it came down from a 357 all the way down to a 22.
Wait. Wait. Because now there's a big difference. Now, don't get me wrong, a 22 can do some damage. But there's a great big difference between getting hit with a 22 and hit with a 357 Magnum. Let me just ask you a question. On just the shooting part, were there any 357 Magnum shells found? Any bullet? Was there any 22 shells taken out of another cop or anything like that?
No, there were never any shells found. There was hardly any bullet fragments found. There was nothing found. I think when we got to court, they may have found a bullet fragment in the car. It might have bounced off the ground because they shot at him while he was on the ground. When I went back and did my investigation with my family, I saw 3 bullet holes in the ground. So there was a little fragment in the car that they showed in court to try to verify their story.
But wait. I thought someone got shot. I thought he shot a police officer.
Well, Officer Marovic, whatever his name was, claimed he had got shot first. And the reason he shot back, we had no proof of that. It was impossible to get shot with a toy gun. But anyway, the way they do things, they can make whatever happens happen.
We're into the courts and they made their narrative.
Okay,
and what is the defense?
What is the defense? Well, the Black Caucus, the NAACP, everybody got behind my brother. The Black clergy, everyone, because the story that they told did not make sense. My stepdad was in the Air Force also. He was E6 at the time. He had talked to some of the Tuskegee Airmen. Years later, when I met with him, he told me that the Tuskegee Airmen had told him how to protect his family, but he was as naive as we were. He believed that the truth would prevail, because he and I investigated that thing for 3 or 4 days, and he went down there and he talked to, because the people still kept hanging out, and he asked a bunch of guys who was out there to tell their story, and he wrote stuff down and he taped it, and he was finally convinced that it was impossible for my brother to have shot somebody. So we thought it was impossible for this to turn out negative on our behalf.
Well,
being black ain't easy.
little do we know. But
Yes.
did they find any powder burns, anything like that on Nathan?
You know what? They didn't even investigate it like that. They even had the technology back then.
Oh, they had the technology to know if you fired a gun or not. They might not
But
have
they
had.
didn't, you know what? They didn't examine my brother's hands. They didn't do any of that.
And the fragment that you was talking about, just before you get into the case, because I know that's a lot of what this is. That fragment, you said that you all went down to the actual spot where your brother was shot, and there was fragments still there.
Like I said, I saw 3 bullet holes in the asphalt, which means that if they're shooting hollow points, the police officers, those bullets fragmented down there and they bounced up and went in the air and went somewhere.
Or they could have picked up some fragments anywhere.
They could have picked them up off the target range.
Yeah. Okay, so we get into the trial, because I don't want to keep going over that, but because I know that must be a little rough. Your brother, seeing your brother, and all that went down. So we get to court, and
Well, let me can I interject right here?
well, another episode of Where Were You? And we would like to thank our guests for this evening. Also want to thank New Me. New Me helps sponsor Where Were You? So go on and check it out. New Me /Arkway. Also, go on and hit that like. Go on and hit subscribe. Go on and hit that share. Go on and leave a comment. And if you find anyone that has a story, let me know. And hey, you bless someone today.